At some point, you stop asking why they don't love you and start wondering why you ever needed them to. I used to think that if I stayed quiet, stayed kind, and stayed out of the way, my family would notice me, maybe even respect me. But here I was, 38 years old, sitting alone in a one-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner in suburban Chicago, waiting for a wedding invitation that felt more like a ceasefire than a welcome. The wedding? My little sister's. The family? Mine. The silence? Deafening. My name's Clara Bennett. You probably wouldn't look twice at me if we passed on the street. I'm not glamorous. I work at a local bank, behind a desk no one really notices. To my family, I'm the disappointment, the older sister who got divorced, never had kids, and wasted her potential. Their words, not mine. What they don't know, by night, I'm the voice behind Healing Souls, a YouTube channel with over 2 million subscribers, and the founder of a non-profit that's helped thousands escape emotional abuse. I've spoken at conferences, I've been invited to panels. But to my family, I'm invisible. I checked my phone that morning. One message from Sophie. Hope you're not planning to turn my big day into one of your sad little TED Talks. Don't talk about your divorce. Don't embarrass us. I stared at her words, heart sinking for half a second, then laughed. Not bitterly, just quiet, like something inside me had finally stopped begging. They thought they could keep controlling the story, but what they didn't realize was I had mine, and millions were already listening. I walked over to the window. The early sunlight hit the shelf where I kept my plaques, awards for advocacy, letters from survivors. All the things they refused to acknowledge. I'd been building this life in secret, stone by stone, and I wasn't hiding anymore. I picked up my phone and opened the Healing Souls Live app. A quiet blue screen blinked back. Ready. So was I. This wasn't going to be one of those loud, messy revenge stories with screaming and slammed doors. No, this would be surgical, silent, broadcasted. I texted back, "Don't worry, I wouldn't dare ruin your special day. In fact, I'm planning something quite beautiful." And with that, I chose my dress. Not red, not flashy, just navy blue, clean lines, a whisper in a room full of shouts. Because that day, her wedding day, wouldn't just be the celebration of Sophie's perfect little life. It would be the day the world finally saw mine. The valet barely looked at me as I stepped out of the cab in front of the Riverside Grand. I wasn't surprised. My dress was simple, navy, clean lines, not screaming for attention like the sequined gowns I saw streaming through the glass doors. It was exactly how I wanted it. I wasn't here to be seen. I was here to be heard, just not yet. Inside, the ballroom looked like something out of a bridal magazine. Crystal chandeliers, white roses on every table, a massive screen looping Sophie's engagement photos. I paused at the entrance, took a breath, and showed my invitation. The usher glanced down, then smiled politely. "Table 14, right this way." He led me past family friends, extended relatives, even Sophie's college roommates, to the far back corner near the staff exit. The kind of table where nobody could see you, but you could see everything. I took a seat. A woman across from me, an old co-worker of my father's, offered a nod that said, "You again?" I smiled back like I hadn't just been benched at my own sister's wedding. And then I saw her, my mother, Laura Bennett, draped in a champagne silk gown like she was the one walking the aisle today. Her smile was flawless, as was every single strand of her hair, and just like always, she glanced at me and saw nothing. She made her way over. "You came," she said flatly. I nodded. "Of course, wouldn't miss it." Her eyes skimmed my dress. "You know, it wouldn't have hurt to wear something festive. Just think about how you reflect on the family." I didn't flinch. I just smiled. "Thanks for the reminder. I always forget I'm still on probation." She blinked. Didn't get it. Or maybe she did, but didn't care. You know that moment when you're sitting there, watching people who claim to love you treat you like an inconvenience? Like you're just embarrassing background noise? Yeah, I bet some of you know that exact feeling. What would you have said if your mother came up to you like that? Seriously, comment it. Because in that moment I had 1,000 things I wanted to say, but I said none. Yet. I took a sip of water and looked toward the head table where Sophie was laughing with James, glowing under the spotlight. The music swelled, people cheered, I clapped along, silent and invisible. Again. But inside, I had never been clearer. They gave me a table by the door, perfect. It would be easier to walk right up when the time came. And trust me, that time was coming. The slideshow started just after the entree was cleared. The lights dimmed, the music softened, the MC cleared his throat and cheerfully announced, "And now a little journey through Sophie's life and the people who helped shape the amazing woman she is today." The screen lit up with a photo of Sophie as a baby, rosy cheeks, wrapped in a pink blanket, held by my mom in front of our old house. I wasn't in the photo, I wasn't in the next one either, or the one after that. I counted 17 photos before I showed up, blurry, off to the side, behind a birthday cake I didn't even remember, and then, just like that, I was gone again. It was subtle, intentional. I knew the kind of erasure that didn't need scissors. Then Sophie's voice came over the speakers. "I've been so lucky to be surrounded by love my entire life," she said sweetly. "My parents, of course, are my greatest role models, and to my sister Clara, well, I didn't forget you." A few people chuckled, lightly, nervously. The screen changed, white background, big black letters. Clara Bennett divorced. No kids. Low-income job. Former writer, now bank clerk. The word writer was in quotation marks. I blinked. Then my face flashed up. Not a good photo. Not one I'd ever posted publicly. It looked like a DMV picture from 2014. My hair was tied back, no makeup, eyes mid-blink. Frozen like a bad punchline, and people laughed, some politely, some unfiltered. My mother chuckled behind her wine glass. My father leaned over to someone at the next table and said, "That's our Clara. Always humble." Sophie stepped back into the mic, beaming. "Don't laugh too hard, she might cry." And that got the whole room going. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just sat there and watched myself become the joke at a wedding full of polished people and expensive centerpieces. They didn't know what was coming, but I did. I had prepared for this. What they thought was just another jab, another harmless humiliation, was exactly the moment I had been waiting for. Because this wasn't just about me. This was about every person who's ever been called too sensitive for noticing cruelty. Every sibling pushed to the edge of family photos, every daughter who learned how to disappear just to survive. That screen had been weaponized to shame me. They had no idea I came armed with my own. And in just a few minutes, they'd understand what truth looks like when it's projected 12 feet tall. I reached into my purse and touched my phone. It was already unlocked. The Healing Souls Live app was glowing softly. The words across the top read, "Ready to stream." I was ready too. For the first time in years, I was going to speak. Not in whispers, not in private, but here, now, in front of everyone who had ever pretended I didn't exist. They turned me into the punchline, but I had rewritten the ending, and trust me, no one in that room was going to forget my name again. I stood up slowly. The laughter didn't stop right away. It took a few seconds for people to realize I wasn't just shifting in my chair, I was rising. The sound in the room thinned, like a party DJ lowering the volume just before the beat drops. Sophie froze at the mic, her smile flickering. My parents turned in their seats. I cleared my throat. "May I say a few words?" Sophie blinked. Sure. Just keep it short, okay?" I walked calmly to the center of the ballroom, my heels echoing over the marble floor. No one stopped me. Not yet. I turned to face them all. Then I pulled out my phone. With one tap, the ballroom screen went black, then flickered to life again. The projector now displayed something else entirely, a live stream window. Healing Souls. Live, 1,287,034 watching. The number ticked upward, fast. Gasps rippled across the room. My mother sat up straighter. My father shifted uncomfortably. Sophie stepped back like someone had pulled a rug out from under her. "Good evening," I said, voice steady. "Some of you know me as Clara Bennett, Sophie's sister, Edward and Laura's eldest daughter, the one with the quiet job, the failed marriage, and the life no one talks about." I paused, then pointed to the screen. "But millions of others know me as the founder of Healing Souls, an online community for survivors of emotional abuse. And tonight, I'm not just your family embarrassment, I'm your accountability." Gasps turned to pin-drop silence. "I've been quiet for years. I swallowed your words. I watched you erase me, laugh at me, use my pain as party decor. But what you didn't know is I've been recording, collecting, preparing." I tapped my phone again. A series of emails and transaction records appeared on the screen. $250,000 in non-profit funds redirected to shell accounts, accounts connected to my father's company. A note from Sophie's email read, "Use Clara's name. She won't say anything. She never does." Now people were whispering. "And now?" I said. "Let me show you what happens when the quiet one stops staying quiet." The comment box on the screen was exploding, messages of support, donations flying in live. The total updated in real time, $312,000 raised in 5 minutes. From strangers, from survivors, from people who believed in me more than my own blood ever had. My mother finally stood up, her voice brittle. "This is highly inappropriate. This is a wedding, Clara." I turned to her, calm, controlled. "You're right. And maybe if you'd raised your daughters with compassion instead of comparison, this moment wouldn't exist." The guests didn't laugh anymore. They watched, unblinking. Sophie whispered, "You planned this." "Yes," I said softly. "But you triggered it. When you made me the joke, you gave me permission to speak." I stepped forward, looking directly into the crowd. "You called me invisible. Tonight I made myself seen. You tried to bury me under shame, but I kept the receipts." And then I looked at the screen one last time. Healing Souls Live, 1.4 million watching. No one said a word, because sometimes silence isn't awkward, it's stunned. And finally, just maybe, a little ashamed. My father stood up so fast his chair screeched across the ballroom floor. His face was flushed red, jaw clenched. "This is ridiculous," he barked. "Clara, sit down. This isn't the place." I didn't move. "No, Dad," I said clearly. "This is exactly the place. You made it the place the second you let Sophie put my life on a screen for people to laugh at." My voice didn't shake. The screen behind me changed again. This time, a familiar audio file played through the venue speakers. The voice was unmistakably Sophie's. "Clara's just a placeholder. People feel sorry for her. She's useful like that, gets sympathy donations." Gasps. One woman covered her mouth. Another looked straight at Sophie, horrified. Then another clip. My mother's voice this time. "That girl was born broken. I stopped expecting anything from her years ago." And then my father. Calm, chilling. "Clara's not really family. She's a burden we tolerated. Sophie is our legacy." The ballroom fell completely silent. No one looked away. "You always said I was too sensitive," I said, stepping closer to the front of the room, "that I couldn't take a joke. But these weren't jokes. They were choices. And every time you laughed, every time you erased me from the family photo or corrected someone when they asked if I had kids, you were making a choice." I turned to the audience. "How many of you were told not to speak up because it's just family drama, or because airing it out makes you look petty? You're not petty, you're surviving." The chat box on the live stream overflowed. "That's me. This is my story too. I've never felt seen like this. Clara, you are not alone." The screen displayed the donation ticker again, $587,000 in less than 10 minutes. I didn't come here to ruin Sophie's wedding, I said, looking right at her. I came here to protect what's mine, my name, my work, my voice. Sophie looked stunned, completely stripped of her usual cool. You're lying, she whispered. Dad would never... I tapped the screen once more. A document appeared, an internal memo from Bennett Development, signed by my father, a directive to leverage Clara's non-profit for image management, detailing how my name and organisation had been used without consent for promotional campaigns. I had filed the trademark documents 3 months prior. Legally, it was mine. I gave you years to treat me like a human being, I said. You chose power over kindness. You built a house on shame and thought I'd live in the basement forever. Sophie turned away. My mother sank into her chair, hand over her chest. My father's lips moved, but no sound came. Then the ballroom doors opened. David walked in, tall, calm, confident. My ex-husband, whom they all thought had abandoned me out of pity, now the executive of a multi-million-dollar tech firm. The murmur through the crowd was immediate. He walked to me without hesitation, took my hand, and turned to the room. I left because I couldn't protect Clara from the people hurting her most. But I'm here now, not to fix anything, but to stand beside her as she finally tells the truth. He looked at me with quiet pride. And suddenly, I wasn't just standing there as the forgotten sister. I was standing as someone who had fought her way back into the light on her own terms. The wedding reception never recovered. People started quietly excusing themselves, some out of politeness, others from sheer discomfort. I watched as James, the groom, stood up from his seat next to Sophie, his face pale, jaw tight. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. I'm sorry, he told me softly. I didn't know about any of it, but I see it now, and I can't be part of this. He gave Sophie one long look, one I'll never forget, then walked straight toward the door, followed by his stunned parents. The silence left behind was thick, like fog no one could see through. My father slumped back into his chair. My mother's eyes were fixed on the floor. Sophie? Still frozen, as if the spotlight she'd created had turned into a heat lamp, too bright, too hot to bear. I stepped back to the mic. For years you all told me family mattered more than anything. You used it to silence me, control me, but real family doesn't steal your voice and call it love. Real family doesn't laugh when you cry. The live stream ticked past 1.7 million viewers. My team, survivors from Healing Souls, had quietly joined me in the back of the room. Some had tears in their eyes, others just nodded, letting me know this was our moment, not just mine. I turned to face the camera one last time. If you've ever been the invisible one at the table, if your own blood made you feel small, if you've been told your pain doesn't matter just because it came from people who loved you, hear me now. You are not too sensitive. You are not weak. You are not alone. A pause. Your voice has power, and I hope tonight reminds you it's never too late to use it. Then I walked away. A year later, my second book hit the shelves, no longer quiet. The line at my New York signing wrapped around the block. David was there beside me, no longer my husband, but something more lasting, a friend who never left again. Sophie came too, not dressed up, not dramatic, just present, quiet, trying. We're not whole yet, but healing doesn't need to be fast, just honest. Now it's your turn. Have you ever been treated like the outsider in your own family? Have you ever sat at the table, surrounded by people who should love you but made you feel invisible? Share your story in the comments. You never know who you'll help just by saying, "Me too." Let's talk. Let's break the silence. Together. Clara.